Hey guys, I'm Nikhil. I'm a computer science student from ISTE University. Today I'm going to be teaching about matrices. Yeah, so why matrices is a very important field in mathematics and science, especially in computer science, because it simplifies a lot of things. For example, see, a matrix especially is a two-dimensional representation of data. So there are a lot of places where we would require the data to be in two-dimensional form and apply our functions on the two-dimensional form directly instead of converting it to a linear source or a linear signal and then retransferring it or converting it back to the original data. So there are many places where we would require a correspondent data. A correspondent data is basically a normal data which has relationship with another data. So for example, it could be like a salesman, okay, or a number of salesmen selling number of mangoes. So so a matrix would contain of rows and columns. So there'd be rows, and then there's columns of data. So each intersection would be a data element. Yeah, but so there you go. So when we're representing the number of salesmen, we can represent them in the rows. And when we represent the number of mangoes they sell, we can represent them in columns. So we can now get a correspondent figure of how many salesmen are selling how many number of mangoes. So that's the main reason why we use matrices. Yeah. So now, so not just in this, in image processing, especially in computer science, we're gonna represent the image in a two-dimensional form factor. So whatever the resolution of the image is, that would be the order of the matrix. So okay, so first let me just rush you up with the basics of matrices. Okay, so the first and most okay, so like let's just take an example matrix and then I'll tell you how to work on it. So the most common matrix is you've probably seen this one. Yeah. So here I have a matrix with 3 rows and 3 columns. So these are called the rows and these are the columns. So here this matrix can be assigned to a letter. So we always have to use capital letters when we're assigning matrices to them. So this is so the order of this matrix is 3 by 3. So order is basically the form factor of the matrix. It says that there are 3 rows and 3 columns. So the first one is row and the second one is column. It's a row cross column count. That's the order of a matrix. Okay, cool. Yeah, so let's just move on to type of matrices. So there you go. This is general, and the elements inside the matrices are represented by small. So this is so capital A represents the entire matrix, and small a with ij represents a single element in the matrix. Since this I and j represent the I represents the number of the row number, and j represents the column number. So for example, if you wanna represent the 5, what we have to write is this belongs to the second row and second column. So that's A 2 2. So that's 5. So yeah, that's how you proceed. Yeah. Now let's move on to the types of matrices there. Okay. So now types of matrices. So there are many types of matrices depending on the order and other properties too. So first, based on order. There's something called a row matrix. So a row matrix occurs when it has the form if it takes the form of a single row. If it has only one row and any n number of columns, then it's called a row matrix. So for example, I could just take 1 2 3. So this is a row matrix, and this has 1 row and 3 columns. So row matrix order is of the form 1 into n. This means that there's always 1 row and then there's n number of columns. Similar way, there is a column matrix. And column matrix consists of a single column but any number of rows. So that has the order of the form. So this here, this has 3 rows and 1 column, so 3 by 1. But generally it has the order of the form m cross 1. So this is for the column matrix. The next basic one is the square matrix. So a square matrix has equal number of rows and columns. So here, if m cross n and m equals to n, then it's a square matrix. All square, like an example would be a 2 by 2 square matrix. A 2 by 2 square matrix is 1 0 0 1 This is a 2 by 2 square matrix. Yeah. Okay. The next one, I'll just give you an example of diagonal matrix. So here, this is called the principal diagonal of a matrix. Okay. So this here is the principal diagonal of the matrix, of any matrix basically. Especially for square matrices, the principal diagonal only exists for square matrices clearly because there have to be equal number of elements. So now a diagonal matrix, matrix will be classified as a diagonal matrix if the lower triangle and the upper triangle are 0 and the principal diagonal elements are non-zero. So here we have to make these 0. So if these are 0, then that would be a diagonal matrix. Now the fifth type would be the identity matrix. So the identity matrix. Yeah, so this is a special type of matrix because it has identity properties. So I'm going to be talking about the properties later. Yeah, so it's basically a square matrix. Identity matrix is always a square matrix. And for example, a 2 by 2 identity matrix would be 1, 0, 0, 1. A 3 by 3 identity matrix would be 1, 1, 1, 0, 0. This is a 3 by 3 identity matrix. Basically, an identity matrix, the principal diagonal elements should be 1 and the non-principal diagonal elements should basically be 0. So that's the identity matrix. I'm going to be talking about the properties later. And the next one is the scalar matrix. This is another important matrix. Yeah, so a scalar matrix is again a square matrix. Yeah, so scalar matrix, if this is an example matrix, what makes this matrix a scalar matrix is that, again, the principal diagonal elements should be non-zero and the remaining should be 0, and at the same time all the principal diagonal elements should be equal. So to convert this into a scalar matrix, it would be like special matrix is a scalar matrix, where in here it's again a square matrix, it must be a square matrix for it to be a scalar matrix, and here the principal diagonal elements are non-zero and they're all equal to each other, whereas the non-principal diagonal elements are 0. Cool. Okay guys, so now we're going to be doing some operations on matrices. So how exactly do matrices have their operations differ from each other? So let me just write it down. Yeah. So first is addition. So matrix addition is very straightforward actually. So so let's take an example matrix. The thing is, the condition with addition is that, let's say there are two matrices A and B. So for us to add these two matrices, they have to have the same order. So the order of A has to be equal to the order of B. So let me just write the condition here. Here the condition is the order of A equals to the order of B. Okay. So that has to be satisfied, otherwise the matrices cannot be added because the dimensions of the matrices should be equal. So for example, if I take a 2 by 2 matrix, I'll just take 1, 2, 3, 4 plus, this is A, and B, I'll just take 1, 1, 1, 1. So for me to add this, I just have to simply add element by element, the corresponding element by element. So the result of this would be 1 plus 1, that's 2, 2 plus 1, that's 3, 3 plus 1, that's 4, 4 plus 1, that's 5. So since they're of the same order, it's straightforward to add. If they're of different order, we just cannot add. So the same condition for subtraction here, again the same condition. The order of A has to be, like if you take two matrices A, B, and the order of they have to have the same order for us to subtract them. So again, it's very straightforward subtraction. We simply have, for example, if A is 1, 2, 3, 4 and B is 1, like the previous example, we just have to subtract the corresponding element with the same element over there. So here 1 minus 1 would be, the result here would be 1 minus 1 is 0, 2 minus 1 is 1, 3 minus 1 is 2, 4 minus 1 is 3. So this is the new matrix. This is the result of matrix. So the next one is multiplication. It's a little bit trickier. So so moving on to multiplication. So multiplication is a little complex than addition, subtraction, and not actually straightforward. And the condition for multiplication, for example, if we take two matrices A, B, is that they don't need to be of the same dimension, as in they don't need to be square matrices, okay? So the number of columns of A should match the number of rows of B. That's the only condition basically. So whatever matrix we take, if the number of columns of A match the number of rows of B, then we can just multiply them. Otherwise we can't. So if we take I'll give you 3 types of examples where the number of columns are same, similar, and different. So in here, if we take a previous example, this is a 2 by 2 matrix. As we can see, there are 2 rows and 2 columns, and this is also a 2 by 2 matrix. And as we can see, the number of columns of A is equal to the number of rows of B. Hence, we can multiply them. And how are we going to multiply them? It's a little bit tricky. Just hold on here. So what we have to do is we have to take this row and we have to multiply it with this column. So we take this row, we take these 2 elements, and we multiply them with the corresponding column elements. That's the reason why the number of columns here, which is these 2, have to be equal to the number of rows, so that we can just turn them and multiply. And after doing that, we have to add them, and that's the first element. So here, let's talk about the better procedure for doing is to find out the dimensions of the resultant matrix. So how we can do that is, so let's say this is my resultant matrix. So we can get the order of this resultant matrix by doing this. Since the number of columns is equal to the number of rows, just delete these both and write the remnants. Okay. So here, since here it's 2 by 2 and it's 2 by 2, since these both are equal, just remove these and then write the resultant. So that's 2 by 2 is the order of the new matrix right now. Okay. Now, since we know that's 2 by 2, then we know that there are 4 elements. So we have to fill these 4 elements. So the first element is calculated by multiplying these both with the first column. So the first row with the first column. So and add the elements up. So 1 into 1 plus 2 into 1. So 1 into 1 is 1 plus 2 into 1 is 2. So 2 plus 1 is 3. So that's 3. Same thing for this one. We have to multiply this first row with the second column. So 1 into 1 is 1. 2 into 1 is 2. 1 plus 2 is 3 again. So for the third one, we have to multiply this second row, with the first column. So 3 into 1 is 3, 4 into 1 is 4, 3 plus 1 is 7. Same way here, 3. So here we have to, for the fourth one, we have to multiply the second row with the second column. 3 into 1 is 3, 4 into 1 is 4, so 3 plus 4 is 7. So there you go. This is the resultant matrix. So that's how, since they're of similar dimensions, that's how it's done. Let's talk about if A and B have different orders, completely different orders. Okay. Yeah. So now we take an example of this, and here here B is a column matrix, as we can see, because the number of columns is 1, and yeah. So can we multiply them? So again, we can check with the condition. Number of columns of A is 2, and the number of rows of B is 2. So they're equal, and we can multiply them. So again, we're going to proceed with the same step. Find the order of the resultant matrix. How we can do that is take these 2's out. So the remnants is the order of the resultant matrix. So that's 2 by 1. Since if these 2 go out, so 2 by 1 is the resultant matrix. So this is the dimensions of the resultant matrix. What does this say? It says that there are two rows and 1 column. That means there are 2 blanks. So we have to fill these 2 blanks. So it's very easy. Again, proceed with the same steps. The first element, I have to take the first row, multiply with the first. There's only 1 column, so first row and this column. So 1 into 2 is 2, 2 into 1 is 2, 2 plus 2 is 4. Same with this for the second row and 1 column. 2 into 2 is 4, 1 into 1 is 1, 4 plus 1 is 5. So the 4, 5. This is the new matrix. Cool. Now let's say instead of a column matrix, let's say we took a row matrix. Okay. So let's say we took 1 cross the row matrix of 1s. Yeah. So if we took 1 cross to so here we can't actually multiply this, because even though it looks like we can multiply, because the number of columns of A, which is 2, is not equal to the number of rows of B. So we just can't multiply this because we can't find the dimensions of the resultant matrix. The first step itself, we can't perform it. Yeah, so another form of multiplication is like we just seen operations between matrices. So matrix is another quantity. So what if you want to multiply with a scalar? So scalar is basically a number. So multiplying matrix with a scalar yields the scalar times that matrix. So for example, let K be the scalar and A be the matrix. So K into A, if A, let's say A was ABCD, okay? So if A was ABCD, then K into A would be KA, KB, BKA, KB, K into C, and K into D. So multiplication with a scalar means that you have to multiply that scalar with each and every individual element in that matrix. So that's basically it. Yeah. So now let's talk about the properties associated with the operations on the matrices. So like how commutative property or closure or associative properties vary among different operators. Okay. So let me just write it down. Okay, so I'm going to be talking about properties in accordance with respect to each operator. So with respect to addition, so let's take addition first. There is commutative law. So commutative law satisfies with addition. It basically means that if there are two matrices, right? If there are two matrices A and B, then A plus B equals to B plus A. They're the same thing, because either way we're just gonna be adding corresponding element to the corresponding element. So there's no difference there. The second law is associative law. So if there are, so this basically talks about the grouping of the matrices. So for example, if there are three matrices A, B, C, then A plus B plus C is equals to A plus B plus C. So these both are equal. Okay, so that's associative law. The third one is identity law. Yeah, so identity law states that there exists an additive identity. An additive identity is nothing but a zero matrix. So, for example, A plus O, which is the zero matrix, equals to A. Okay, so zero matrix is nothing but a matrix full of zeros. Yeah, so a zero matrix is nothing but a matrix full of zeros. So zero matrix would assume the dimension of A or the order of A. If A is a 2 by 2 matrix, then zero matrix would be a 2 by 2 matrix of all zeros. So then if we add that to A, then we just get the A. So this states about the existence of additive identity. And the last one is the additive inverse. So an additive inverse is it's much more straightforward. In that it means that when A is added to the negative of itself, then we get the zero matrix. That's it. That's very straightforward. Okay, now let's talk about the properties with respect to multiplication. So I'm not going to talk about subtraction because it's same as adding the negative. So all the laws which are taught for addition are same for subtraction. For multiplication, it gets a little complex because of this. Let me just check it out. So let's say there are two matrices A and B. So commutative law doesn't actually satisfy. It doesn't satisfy with multiplication. So because A into B is not actually equals to B into A. This is actually logical because let's say A has R cross C and B has M cross N as order. Okay, so here the condition for multiplication is that the columns of A, which is C, should be equal to the rows of B, which is M. So if C equals to M, this is possible, right? So C equals to M, then this is satisfied. But the thing is, when we're doing B into A, then this is M cross N and this is R cross C. Then it doesn't necessarily need that the N should be equal to R, because here for this to happen, the number of rows of B, which is N, should be equal to the number of columns of B, which is N, it should be equal to the number of rows of A, which is R. So N should be equals to R here. So since these both conditions are very different and varying, clearly that's one of the reasons why commutative law doesn't actually satisfy. The other reason is internally. Okay, so that's the first reason. The other reason is when we're actually multiplying them. So let's just take the first base. So A into B, right? So in here, when we're multiplying these two matrices, so we're going to take the first row of A and multiply with the next column of B and then add them up, right? But when we're doing B into A, we're taking the row of B and multiplying with the column of A. So here, we're doing the column of A into row of B, but in the reverse, in B cross A, we're doing the column of B into row of A. So there you go. So there's inconsistency there, and that's the major reason why commutative law doesn't satisfy. So now associative law, just like commutative law, when we're having, let me just erase this for the confusion. Yeah. So in associative law, when we have three matrices, let's say we have A, B, and C. So the law states that A into B into C equals to A into B into C. Well, this actually satisfies this associative law satisfies, because we're not actually changing the order here. We're not reversing anything. All of them are staying intact. Okay, we're multiplying one after the other. Here we're grouping A and B. Here we're grouping B and C, but they're still in the same order. They're not reversed. So that's the reason why associative law satisfies. So A into B into C is equals to A into B into C. Cool. So the multiplicative identity law is again talking about the existence of multiplicative identity. So if we multiply A, matrix A, with a multiplicative identity, we should get the same matrix back, right? So just like addition, where we added A to an additive identity, which is a zero matrix, we got the same element back. So here, the multiplicative identity is nothing but the identity matrix. So that is the reason why the identity matrix is named the identity matrix. So A into I, again, I will assume the order of A, and obviously A should be a square matrix. The thing with multiplication is that the multiplicative identity, especially, it's very limited and restrictive, because here A has to be a square matrix because identity matrix is a square matrix. We cannot get a non-square identity matrix. So A has to be a square matrix, and I will assume the order of A and turn it into a corresponding square matrix, and A into I is obviously A. Yeah. So that's identity law, and that's all about the properties with respect to multiplication. Now let's talk about another important topic. It's the transpose of a matrix. Okay, so transpose, right? It's yeah. So transpose a matrix. So let's say let A be a matrix, and the transpose of a matrix is represented by putting a dash on top or a T on top. So either this is a transpose, or this. So A transpose is either A dash or A power T. So a transpose is nothing but we have to replace the number of rows, the rows with the columns in A. So let's say A is a square matrix of A, B, C, D. Okay. So here these are the rows. This is R1. This is R2. This is C1, this is C2. So these are the rows and these are the columns. So a transpose of this would be, the rows would be replaced with columns. So this row is now a column. So AB, okay, and this row is now a column. So this is CB. So this is the transpose of matrix, okay. And the thing is, since this is a square matrix, the transpose of this was also a square matrix. But generally, when we take a non-square matrix, so if we take a matrix of different order, so like M into N, where M and N are not equal, then we get the order, the transpose has the order of N into M. So if A has the order M into N, the transpose has the order N into M. So this is actually clearly easily provable by taking an example of a row matrix. Let's say we take this row matrix. So since this has only one row, the transpose of this is converting this one row into a column. So when we convert this, this would become 1, 2, 3. So this is the transpose of that matrix, and clearly, since the order of this is 1 row and 3 columns, so 1 by 3, and the order of this is 3 rows and 1 column, so that's 3 by 1. So as you can see here, that's if it's M into N, that's N into M. Okay. So let's talk about the properties that the transpose of matrix possesses. The properties of the transpose is yeah. So the first one is the transpose of the transpose. So A transpose whole transpose is nothing but A, because we're reversing it twice, right? We're converting the rows to columns and then back to rows again. So A transpose whole transpose is A. And next one is the transpose of a sum. So A plus B whole transpose is nothing but A transpose plus B transpose. Okay, that's very simple and straightforward, because when we add two numbers and then we change the rows and columns, or we change the rows and columns first and then add, it doesn't make a difference, it's the same thing. The third one is when we multiply a scalar. So K into A whole transpose is nothing but K into A transpose, because the scalar into matrix is nothing but that scalar into each and every single element of that matrix. So even if we change the rows and columns, the scalar is going to be multiplied with each and every element anyway. So transpose doesn't affect the scalar. Fourth one is the most important one. It's when we have two matrices which is multiplied. So if it's A into B, and the transpose of this is actually the reverse notation, so B transpose into A transpose. So A into B whole transpose is B transpose into A transpose. But this is because when we're multiplying A into B, so clearly just visualize this, okay? So yeah, so an explanation for this would be yeah, so the reason for this law is that see, just visualize this, okay? So when we have two matrices, so we have A and we have B. So when we're multiplying these, I told you that we take the row and then we multiply it with the corresponding column. So obviously the order of these both are equal. So when we take the row and when we multiply the column, okay? So when we do this and then we get a resulting matrix and then we transpose that, okay? That is actually similar to transposing these both matrices first. And the thing is, we're writing them in the reverse order because, think about this, okay? So when we have A, so let the order of A be M by N, okay? And let the order of B be R by C. So the reason that we can actually multiply these is because N is equals to R, right? So that's the reason why we're able to multiply this. So when we multiply these both, since N is equals to R, what did I tell you? That when we have to form the resultant matrix, we know that the resultant matrix order is the other two elements in that order. So here, the resultant matrix will have the order of M into C, okay? So now, if we prove the same thing to the right side, the B transpose, the order of B transpose is nothing but C into R. So B transpose is C into R, and A transpose order is N into M. So N into M, okay? So now, if you can see, we already took N is equals to R. So the reason why we're reversing them, see, if we write A transpose into B transpose, right? So then it will be N into M cross C into R. But we never know that if M equals to C or not. We just know that R equals to N. And for that property to satisfy, we have to put them in this order. So since R equals to N now, we can just take these two, and now the resultant matrix will have the final order of C cross M. Here, it is M cross C, and the transpose of this whole thing is C cross M. So they have the same order, and that's the major reason why this law exists. So this real law is actually a very important law. Well, that's because it deals with logarithm. So I just straight out write the law first. So A plus B into C is AC plus BC, okay, and A into B plus C is AB plus AC. Yeah. So this rule of law is actually straightforward to understand, but it's a little complex in terms of matrices because we have to remember the order of multiplication. That means if A plus B into C, whole into C, that means that this C should be the rightmost of whatever multiplication there is. So I can't just be like C into A plus B into C. It has to be towards the right. That's the reason why I wrote it in two forms. So since A is towards the left here, as you can see in the right hand side, A is also always towards the left. So that's what you have to remember, because obviously the reason why I'm multiplying these both, see, when we're adding, the order doesn't change, right? So the order of these both obviously has to be the same for us to add. So when we do add them and we get a final order, that number of rows should be equal to the number of columns of A. So that's why A should always be on the left hand side. So because the number of columns of A should always be equal to the number of rows of B, or what the right side element is.
Hello boys and girls, this is Mohammed Yunus, and today I'm going to be teaching you guys basic of simple interest, compound interest and statistics. This video is an addition to other videos done by ISTE under the campaign called Teaching Well Law. So we'll be starting our videos with simple interest. What is simple interest? In your day-to-day life, you must have come across a situation where you don't have enough money to buy something. So you take loan from your friend and pay them back or return the exact amount of money that you borrowed later. But in real world, money is not free to borrow. In real world, you often take money in the form of loan, and during payback, Apart from the loan amount, you pay some more money that depends on loan amount as well as the time for which you borrow the money. As soon as we start earning, we are suggested to keep our money in the bank for the safety. But there are a number of banks. Which one do we choose? So we usually go with the one which provide us better security on our money as well as suitable interest rate for us. Keeping money in the bank is a real world example for simple interest. So we'll be solving one question on simple interest first, then we'll be proceeding for compound interest.
Before solving the problem, we'll look into the formula. The formula for simple interest it is given as SI equals to P into R into T whole divided by 100, where P stands for principal amount, the initial amount or the amount you loan at. R stands for interest rate at which you agree to take the loan, and T stands for time duration, the amount of time you are going to keep the money. Now we will look into the problems. Let us say that a person takes a loan of rupees 1000 from you. He promised to return the money after 2 months. You decided on the rate of 10% per month. So we will look into the amount that you will get after 2 months from him after adding the simple interest. So here we have principal amount. The loan sum equals to principal amount is rupees 1000. The rate of interest we have equals to 10%. Then the time for which it is borrowed, T equals to 2 months. The rate is given in 10% per month, not annum. Okay, you have to look for that. So as we know that SI is given as P into R into T whole divided by 100. It is equals to 1000 into 10 into 2 whole upon 100, which is equals to 200. This is the simple interest which will add up on the principal amount. So the total amount you will get will be equal to principal amount plus simple interest amount, which is equals to 1000 plus 200. So after 2 months you will be having 1200 rupees. That's it.
As we saw earlier, simple interest is used when we are keeping our money in the bank. But how bank earn? They use compound interest to earn money. What they do is they add the compound interest after 1 year and they add it to the principal amount. So by the definition of compound interest, it goes like this. Compound interest is the interest calculated on the principal and the interest accumulated over the previous period. It is unlike simple interest where interest is not added to the principal while calculating the interest during the next period. Compound interest find its usage in the most of the transaction in the banking and the finance sector. So we'll be solving one questions on compound interest and then we will be proceeding towards statistics. As we saw earlier, simple interest is used when we are keeping our money in the bank. But how bank earn? They use compound interest to earn money. What they do is they add the compound interest after 1 year and they add it to the principal amount. So by the definition of compound interest, it goes like this. Compound interest is the interest calculated on the principal and the interest accumulated over the previous period. It is unlike simple interest where interest is not added to the principal while calculating the interest during the next period. Compound interest find its use in the most of the transaction in the banking and the finance sector. So we'll be solving one questions on compound interest and then we will be proceeding towards statistics.
For compound interest, the question we will be taking here is, suppose you took a loan from a bank for a period of 2 years. The rate of interest given is 10% per annum. So here we have to find the interest and the amount that you have to pay at the end of 2 years. Let's say that you took a loan of rupees 20,000. Okay. So before solving, we need to give the formula for compound interest. It is given as amount A equals to P into 1 plus R upon N to the power NT. Here P is the principal amount, P, then A is the total amount that after a certain period you have to pay. R is the rate, interest rate, and T is given as time for which you borrowed the money. So the question here is given as loan amount that is equals to principal amount is rupees 20,000. The rate of interest here is R equals to 10% per annum. You have to keep this in mind. Sometimes it is given in month, so you have to convert everything in month, then you have to solve the problems. So the time here is 2 years. So after 2 years, the total amount we have to find, which is given as A equals to P here, which is 20,000, then into 1 plus R. Here R is 10 upon 100 into the power 2, which is equals to the term. So it is equals to 20,000 into 1 plus 0.1 to the power 2 equals to 20,000 into 1.1 to the power 2 equals to 20,000 into 1.21, which is equals to 24,200. So the amount that you are going to pay to the bank after 2 years is 24,200. So the total amount the bank is gaining from you is equals to amount of gain is given as total amount, that is 24,200 minus the principal amount 20,000. So the bank will be earning 4,200 after 2 years. $20,000. Okay, thank you.
As we have finished simple interest and compound interest, now time for statistics. In our real world, in our day-to-day life, we come across a wide variety of data. The information is there in every which form. So, from a given data, how we extract the meaningful information, that is the information of our interest, and convert it into the proper knowledge is a branch of mathematics called statistics. So, we will be looking into the very basic formula of statistics, that is mean, median, and mode. Mean is a summation of number divided by total number of entries. Like if there are given number of entries for as per say 2, 4, and 3. So we will be summing it up and we will divide it by 3 as the number of entries is 3. That will give us the mean. Median is the middle element for odd number of elements. As we have taken 2, 4, 3, the median for this is 4. But in case if the number of entries is even, not odd, let's say the given entries is 2, 4, 3, and 5. In that case, what we usually do is we add the middle two entries, that is 4 and 3, and took the average of it. So it will be 7 plus 3 divided by 2, that is 3.5. Third formula we are looking for is the mode. Mode is in maximum of same kind. Like given data set is 2, 4, 4, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 5, 5. So maximum number of repetition is 3 here. The number 3 has been repeated maximum number of times. So the mode of the given data set will be 3. We will be looking into these formulas with solved examples and how they are used in the real world.
So we are going to solve a statics problem here. Let's say that you're given a marks obtained by 10 students in a mathematics class, which is given below. So you are asked here to find the student, find the marks for the lowest in the class, who got the lowest marks in the class. In order to find this without systematic way or using any of the statics algorithm or formula, you are going to take a lot of time because you have to keep account of everything which is the minimum marks till now. So in order to do that, first we are going to convert this data set or the data given in ascending order. So first the minimum number is 25, as you can see. After that 25 comes 36, then after 36 42 is the minimum. After 42 minimum is 55. Then after 55 minimum is 60. Then comes 62, I guess, 62. After 62 73, then 75 and 78, and at last comes 95. So if you're asked to find the minimum marks student got, so that will be 25. The maximum will be 95, and if you are asked to find the average of the class, average will be mean mark, that is equals to, as I've told you, summation of all the marks divided by the number of entries. So summation is 25 plus 36 plus 42 plus 55 plus 60 plus 62 plus 73 plus 75 plus 78 plus 95 whole divided by number of entries, that is 10. It is equals to, calculate it on the calculator, 25 plus 36 equals to plus 42 equals to plus 55 plus 60 equals to plus 62 plus 73 plus 75 equals to plus 78 plus 95 whole equals to 60.601 divided by 10, which is equals to 60.1. So the average of the class is 60.1. Median of the given data will be, as we know that median is the middle element. Since the given number is in even order, so we will be finding the average of the two middle values. Here the middle value is 1 2 3 4 60 and 62, so we will be adding it. Median will be 60 plus 62 divided by 2, which is 61. So median will be 61. Mode is equals to the maximum of the same kind. Since none of them is the repeated number, it is median will be, nothing will be the median. If let's say that instead of 62, the value given is 60. So in that case, the median will, the mode will be 60. Since 60 is repeated most number of times, that is 2. So 60 will be the mode. As I've told you that in the daily life we get data in different forms. Some are given in number, others are given in different form. This is a bar graph. It is also one way to represent the data. Here the data is given the bar graph, and on the as you can see on the y-axis we have the number of students, and on the x-axis we have the day. So we for the given graph, we are asked, the first question is how many students were born on Friday. So we are supposed to find here the number of students born on Friday. So we'll look for the Friday here, and the number of students given is 5. So answer of the very first question will be 5, the number of students born on Friday. The next question here asks is on what day the number of students were born were minimum. So we will look for the minimum height of the graph. Here the minimum height is of 2 length, but it is of more than one day, that is Wednesday, Thursday and Saturday. So we will write that the minimum number of students born are on Wednesday, Thursday and Saturday, which is equals to 2. So the last question we are going to solve today is here. In a city, the weekly observation made in a study on the cost of living index are given in the following table. For 140 to 150 it is 5, for 150 to 160 given is 10, for 160 to 170 it is 20, for 170 to 180 it is 9, for 180 to 190 it is 6, and at last 190 to 200 it is given 2. So for total is 52. Now we are asked here to draw a frequency polygon for the given data. It can be done in two ways, after constructing a histogram or before, without histogram. So we'll proceeding first for the histogramic way and then without constructing histogram. So in order to make histogram, it is very easy. You just have to draw a graph, and initial value it is not 0, so we'll starting it at 140 and we'll give every point from the table 180, 190 and at last 200. The value will be taking it as from 0 to 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18 and 20. The first value here is from 140 to 150, which is equals to 5. So it will come between 4 to 6. So this will first index. The next is 150 to 160, that is equals to 10. So from here we will start and draw a histogram from 150 to 160 of height 10. Next is 160 to 170, which is equals to 20. So from 160 we will start till 20 will go and will make a histogram. Next is 170 to 180, which is equals to 9. So it will comes between 8 and 10. So it comes around here. So I'm drawing it like this from 170 to 180. Next is 180 to 190, which is 6. So 180 to 190 will come at this point. So this is 180 to 190, and at last the minimum is 190 to 20, which is equals to 2. So this will be equals to 2 for 190. So this is our histogram way. With constructing histogram, we'll just in the middle of it we'll draw a point in the middle of every bar, and we will join one point from starting to the ending point. So this gives us a frequency polygon for the given data. This is with constructing a histogram. So next we will see without constructing a histogram. So in case where we go for without construction of histogram, we will have to find class mark. So in order to find class mark for the given range, we will look for upper limit and lower limit. The upper limit for the first index, that is 140 to 150, is given as lower limit is 140 and upper limit is 150. So the class mark will be 140 plus 150 divided by 2, that is equals to 145. So we will find, similarly we will find class mark for all the classes. For range 150 to 160, upper limit will be 160, lower limit will be 150, class mark will be 160 plus 150 divided by 2, that is equals to 155. For range 160 to 170, upper limit is 170 and lower limit is 160. So for this, the class mark will be 160 plus 170 divided by 2, 165. Then comes 170 to 180. Here the upper limit is 180, lower limit is 170. The class mark for this range is 180 plus 170 divided by 2, 175, which is equals to. Then comes the range 180 to 190. Here upper limit is 190, lower limit is equals to 180, and class mark equals to 190 plus 180 whole divided by 2 equals to 185. And the last range given is 190 to 200. So for this, the upper limit is 200, lower limit is 190, class mark will be 200 plus 190 divided by 2, that is 195. So similarly, after completing the class mark, after calculating the class mark, we'll draw similar table, that is classes, which is the range given, then class mark for the graph purpose, and the frequency, which is already given in the table. So it will look like this. For 140 to 150, the class mark was 145 and the frequency given is 5. For range 150 to 160, it is 155, the class mark, the range given is 10. For 160 to 170 classes, the class mark is 165 and the range given is 20. And for 170 to 180, the class mark is 175, the range given is 9. Sorry, the frequency given is 9. Then comes the range for 180 to 190, the class mark given is 185, the frequency is 6. And the last range is 190 to 200, the class mark is 195 and the range frequency is 2. In total, the frequency is 52. You have to calculate that. Then in order to draw this, first we'll take a graph. Let's say that the given graph look like this. Okay, so since the initial point on the x-axis will not be starting from proper range, since it will go out of the context, so we'll start with 135, let's say. On the y-axis we'll start from 0 only. 0, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22. And on the x-axis we'll be plotting the class mark. On y-axis we have plot frequency. So it is 145, 155, 165, 175, 185 and 195. So for every point, the frequency we got for class mark 145 is 5. It is given, so it will comes between 4 to 6. Will drop or dot to that position. And for class mark 155, the frequency given is 10, so we'll draw 1 point at that position also. Next come is 165, the frequency given is 20, so this will go here 20. Then for 175, the frequency is 9, so we will go between 8 and 10, in the middle of 8 and 10. For 185 it is given 6, so it is here 6. And for 195 it is given 2. So after constructing it, we will start from the initial position we have taken here. It's 135. Okay, so we will start from this and we will start joining all the dots till the last position, and from there to the next class mark that could have been 205. And this way we'll be plotting the frequency polygon for the data given without constructing histogram. Thank you.
Heredity and evolution. What is heredity? It is a phenomena of inheritance of traits and features of parents to offsprings or progeny. For example, you are an offspring of your dad and mom. You have inherited certain features and traits from your parents, be it your hair, your nose, your eyes, etc. You can even say that you are a copy of your parent. But in nature nothing is perfect, therefore you are born with slight variations. These variations occur due to DNA mutation, about which we will discuss later. Variations that occur might be less or more depending on the type of reproduction, if it is asexual or sexual. Asexual produces less variations, whereas sexual produces more variations. Asexual is nothing but reproduction that occurs in by a single parent, and sexual needs two parents. Like in this diagram, we can see that, as we can see in this diagram, human gives birth to another human. It has slight variations. In this case, the human also has slight variations in different manner. And when the human with variation gives birth to humans when a human with variation gives birth to a human, they are born with more variations. But the major properties inherited by the offsprings remain the same. This is nothing but heredity. Why are variations necessary? They are necessary for survival for a very long time. For example, bacteria has been living on Earth for 4 billion years. It has done so by bringing out variations. Imagine the Earth is struck by an asteroid, due to the disaster there is a rise in temperature. If there was no variation occurred in the past, all the bacteria will die, or all of them will survive. But if a small group of bacteria survives, they will go on to reproduce bacteria with more or less variations. Variations in human beings. Like we can see in this diagram, we have different skin color, different height, different hair, nose. As we can see in this diagram here, all the type of noses are different in every human being. We all have different outlooks. Like we can see in the earlobe, we might have an earlobe which is detached and this one is attached. How are these traits transferred? Traits are transferred by the cell. Cell is nothing but an organism made. Cell is nothing but a cell. A cell is the smallest structure and functional unit of an organism, which is typically microscopic and consists of cytoplasm and nucleus enclosed in a membrane. Cell consists of a nucleus. Nucleus consists of thread-like structures called chromosomes. These thread-like structures contains DNA or genes. What are genes? Genes are unit of heredity, responsible for inheritance, different gene for different traits. Like this means that every human has a different gene, and every human can produce different traits. How do genes work? Genes work in pairs. Genes have a dominant gene and there is a recessive gene. The dominant gene decides what trait the offspring will inherit, and recessive is the one which stays behind the scene. Genotype is the pair which it works in. Like, for example, T being the dominant. Here we are discussing the height in an individual, how tall or how short he might be. For example, in this genotype, you would see like capital T and capital T. It is bound to produce a phenotype of tall. Phenotype is nothing but the product, and genotype is the pair in which it works. T being the largest, the capital T here and the small t combine and form tall. Why? We'll discuss this. And T and the capital T again form tall. We'll discuss this. And small t and small t will bring short. This is how the phenotype will look. But why is this tall? Why, you may ask? Because the big capital T is the dominant character or dominant gene, which will overcome the recessive one. Therefore, you will have a tall phenotype. For example, hair color. Let's take the example of hair color. The dominant gene being black is named H. The recessive gene being blonde is named H, blonde and black. Males and females reproduce, and they reproduce through sex cells. Females have the ova and males have sperm, which contain the DNA information. When they both fuse, they form a zygote. For example, this female here has blonde hair. Say she has a genotype of 2 small h's, and male has 2 capital H's, a genotype. From here, small h is passed on to the zygote, and the capital H is passed on to the zygote, which forms nothing but the child with black hair. Now, taking another example, a female with this type of genotype with black hair, and she has a genotype of black and blonde. Male here has both blonde. In this case, there might be 2 cases, because the female can give the dominant character or the recessive character, but in this case she is giving the recessive character, and from here the H is also a recessive character. When they combine in the zygote, they form a blonde hair, and the child born has blonde hair. Or if she gives the dominant character and the recessive character from the male comes in, forms over here HH, the capital H and the small h, but the dominant character wins. Therefore, the black hair, the baby with the black hair is formed. Taking another case, what if both the individuals have the same genotype? In this, there will be 4 cases. Let me explain. Here, the H, the capital H from here and the capital H from here come and form HH in the zygote. This is the phenotype, and this is the genotype in the zygote. But over here, the dominant character here both are H, so they both form, they give out birth to the black hair baby. But if one gives the dominant and one gives the recessive, they'll form black hair in the zygote, black hair baby. If the black hair female gives the small h and the black hair male gives the capital H, it will form H because H is the dominant character, as we would have understood by now. Other case, if both of them gives small h, it'll give small h, sorry this is a mistake, but it'll give a small h here and it'll form blonde hair. From this we get the rule of 3:1, that if both of them have the same genotype, there are 3% chance that you will have black hair and 1% chance you might have blonde hair. Rule of inheritance. George Mendel, through his work on pea plants, discovered the fundamental law of inheritance. Now you wonder why pea plants. I will explain this further in the next slide. He deduced that gene comes in pairs and are inherited as distinct units, one from each parent, like we saw before. Mendel tracked the segregation of parental genes and their appearance in offspring as dominant or recessive traits. Now you may ask, what are dominant and recessive traits? Dominant trait decides the trait presence in the offspring. Recessive trait decides the trait in the present or other identical gene. Why pea plants? Pea plants has different variety, lots of variations. They grow very quickly. This is the experiment which brought about the ratio of 3:1. Like we can see, a pea plant is tall and there is a short, but most of the plants produced in the F1 generation are all tall, like this. But in the F2 generation, self-fertilization causes one short plant. This came to conclusion that if there is a dominant character and there is a recessive character and they are made to fertilize, there might be a 3:1 ratio. What is evolution? What is exactly evolution? It is a process of development of new type of living organism from an old one by gradual changes. Theory of evolution. The theory of evolution doesn't tell us exactly how life began on Earth, but it helps us understand how life, once it came into existence, diversified into many incredible forms we see now and in the fossil records. Also, it helps us understand the way in which the modern creatures continue to adapt and change today. In biology, evolution can be defined as a change in the heritable characters. Those are physical characters like fur color in mice, spots in the wings of butterflies, or instinctive behaviors like the way in which dogs greet their friends with a sniff. within a population across generations. Every living organism is capable of reproduction. We make copies of ourselves. We do this by duplicating DNA and passing that DNA on to the future generations. DNA is a chain-like chemical stored inside each of our cells, which tells them how to grow and function. Every organism has a different DNA, which is why we all look and function in a different manner. Single-cell amoebas and other simple creatures reproduce by copying their DNA inside their gut, moving both copies to either sides of their body and splitting in to right down in the middle. This will form copies that will work exactly in the same if things go exactly perfect. But in nature, things do not always work out perfectly. When DNA is being copied, errors occurs which might modify the DNA code called DNA mutation. Like we can see in this diagram, the amoeba has split and has formed a long arm. Therefore, let's revise the definition. Any change in the heritable traits within a population across generations. Amoeba, if perfectly copied, would look like this, but not. It forms a copy which has a longer arm, and it goes on to produce another copy of it which looks exactly or a bit different, but it has the long arm. That means it has caused a variation in the amoeba. Dogs have all come from ancestral wolves, and this has happened because humans have done selection and bred them in a way that they have chosen smart dogs, cute dogs, strong dogs, or small dogs, or they wanted a bigger dog. So that is how they got about bringing different dogs, and they all come from the same wolves. But all this was done by humans to get their choice or select on the basis of what they wanted. Thank you.